Hello and welcome to the latest episode number 8 of the Two Jasons, our first new show of the new year, 2024. Jason Lee Beckwith, how are you doing, my friend?
What is happening, brother?
All right, and for anybody who wanted to know, we're going to be talking about this album tonight, Hotter Than Hell, 50th anniversary. I'm sure down the line we'll do it because it's also the 50th anniversary of the debut album, which I want to talk about. But today, Hotter Than Hell. I've always loved this album and felt that it's very underrated. What are your feelings on Hotter Than Hell, Jason?
It's absolutely an underrated album, and I think it was hampered a lot by the production.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's a little thin. Those first three records, they were great songs, but they didn't really sound like Kiss sounded live. And it really wasn't until obviously their fourth album, which was Kiss Live, with the amazing Eddie Kramer. But this was Kerner and Wise. It was I think that's who produced this thing. They're Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise. They produced those first three albums, and that's why they have their. I mean, I believe they were probably, they had something to do with Casablanca, and a lot of that stuff was disco. So if you're a house producer for Casablanca, you're probably going to lean more towards a pop production sound.
Well, actually, I gotta correct you there. Okay, Richie Wise and Kenny Kerner, they definitely produced the first two albums. But in case you forgot, the third one, Dressed to Kill, was actually produced by Neil Bogart because at that time, Casablanca was still kind of
that's right. They were broke and they couldn't afford them.
They hadn't made a lot of money, so Neil Bogart
said, "Okay, realize the third album." Probably right.
Yeah, and so again, Hotter Than Hell. I've always loved this album. And also a little note on Richie Wise. People can check this out if you want to go on YouTube later. Years before he ever got involved in Kiss and produced those first two albums, he was in a band called Dust. And I got a chance to interview him a number of years ago when they reissued the Dust album. Pretty cool stuff if people want to go check that out.
Nice.
Yeah, but get back to Hotter Than Hell,
you always get to interview the coolest people.
Yeah. Get back to Hotter Than Hell. One of the things I noticed is about Hotter Than Hell, even more so than any of the other first three albums, Ace was a lot more involved with the songwriting. And it's an interesting time because he was not confident in his ability to sing lead at that point. So he would typically give his songs to either Gene or Peter to sing. Yeah.
It wasn't until it shocked me that they were able to actually talk him into doing it.
Yeah. And so actually,
I got joined by my buddy in the background. He's my, he's helped out.
So actually, Peter Criss, you want to be, anyways, so people
cats and dogs can get along just fine.
Yeah. Kiss fans might be surprised to learn that actually Parasite is not a Gene Simmons song. That's a song written by Ace.
Yep.
And I urge people to go check out the Origins #1. That's Ace's first all covers solo album that he put out a number of years ago, and he did a great cover of both Cold Gin and Parasite with him finally singing lead on those tracks, which I kind of dug.
And I know that on at least one of those tracks on Parasite, he's got the amazing John 5 from Motley Crue on second guitar. They dual solo.
Yeah. So Jason, Hotter Than Hell, can you pick a favorite track, or what are some of your standout tracks?
Wow, I'll tell you what, man, there's a lot of great songs on that. I mean, as far as a guy who is lucky enough to get to play Kiss songs, I love when we go into Parasite. Yeah. And half the time it's not in the set list, or it'll be somewhere else in the set list or whatever. And, it's just a feeling, when me and our lead guitar player, Spaceman, Casey Trask, when it's just a feeling, I can't describe it. Well, when you're in a band with somebody, you got a feeling. You look at somebody and you go, I think this would be a good time for it. When they're in that zone and you're in that zone. So you just look at them and you go,
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, he just goes right into it. You know what I mean? So it's just a feeling, and it just kills. It's not one of the most popular tunes. No. It's not like Rock and Roll All Night or Shout It Out Loud or even Love Gun or something like that. yeah, I wouldn't call it a deep cut, but I definitely wouldn't think it's on the front burner of everybody's mind.
Yeah,
Not even on this album, you know, when
you
you
know what's
got
interesting
Hotter Than
is
Hell and Let Me Go Rock and Roll on this album. But Parasite is awesome. Uh, I also like Let Me Go Rock and Roll just
sure,
because
sure.
it's a jam. It's a jam, and I love jams. You know,
And
I
when you
spent 10 years
when you
floating
say
in
that
and out
that's
of
kind of the
Jimi Hendrix
precursor
tribute.
to Rock and Roll
Huh?
All Night, I mean, Rock and Roll All Night, they really found that national rock and roll anthem, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe this was their first attempt at it even,
Yeah,
but then
that's
they
like,
really got it right with Rock and Roll All Night, for
yeah,
sure. But
yeah.
I love more jam feel of this one. It's just stretched out. I mean, it's got sections that if you're playing live, you guys could just keep going on forever for a while, you know? I love it. I love it. I mean, I spent 10 years floating in and out of a Jimi Hendrix tribute, and
And let me
I
ask
learned a
you,
lot playing with
have you
those
ever
guys
played
about
have you ever played the
improv.
song Strange Ways?
No, I haven't. And another song I love on there that I haven't played live yet is Coming Home, because that's what they opened their 1996, I think it was 96, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The unplugged
Convention
for
tour.
MTV.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember when they did, no, the for MTV.
Yeah, MTV Unplugged. And
Yeah, when they did that, they opened that show with Coming Home, and I thought that was a great version of that song.
in fact, you're so right because, talking about Hotter Than Hell, that's of course where that album first appeared. And like a lot of Kiss fans, over the years, I kind of forgot about that song until Unplugged. And then I don't know, um, the Unplugged version, I think it sounds
Well,
quite
it's
differently,
definitely a deep cut, you know. I mean,
but
it's
they really rocked that up, especially being on Unplugged and stuff. And I'm like, man, it really kicks ass on that.
It does. It sounds better acoustic on that than it does in, on the
It almost
original
gives it a new
recording.
life. I mean, it really is like a totally different song. I mean, the words are the same, but just kind of an all new attitude.
I think it meant something different to them too. Because
Yeah.
think about it. They were at the studios. I think they were at SIR I don't know if they were in LA or if they were in New
Actually, it
York.
was
Makes
called
sense
the
if they would have
Village. It
been.
was a Village studio in Los Angeles. What I was reading, being from New York, they weren't big
Yeah.
fans of the West
But I
Coast.
mean,
And
that was like the first time that they were getting back together with the other guys, and there
yeah,
was this whole thing. So I think that they were just on fire. I think, and this is not based on anything more than
that feeling.
I need a piece of tin foil. I need a
Yeah,
tin foil hat. Okay. So imagine this hat is made of tin
yeah,
foil right now. Okay.
okay.
But I think that the reunion contracts had already been signed
Yeah.
before that MTV Unplugged. What do you think?
I kind of think that you're probably right. They had probably stipulations because from what I understood,
They probably
Gene
had
and Paul
steps.
kind of put a lot of test out there for Peter and Chris, make sure they weren't going to go back to their
First
old
thing
ways.
was that they had to do a tour and make it successful without make it through successfully without any screw ups or cancellations or tardiness
Yeah,
or missed shows. So what they did was they did a small club tour
yeah,
together. Not
yeah,
many people remember this. In 1995 or early 96 or whatever, they did a small club tour, Peter Criss Band and Ace Frehley Band. I actually saw that show, that tour, when they came to San Diego. It was a place called, I almost want to say the Shark Club, but I'm probably
okay,
wrong. But it was or the Coach House or something like that. But
yeah, yeah.
whatever it was, like a week after they played here in San Diego, the place shut down. And then the very next night they played the Shark Club in Vegas. That was the last night on the tour. And a month after that show, that club show shut down for some reason.
Yeah,
Weird.
well, you remember
But
right, like a year before, Peter Chris had put out that solo album called Cat Number One, and from
with
what I
the
understand,
half makeup.
yeah, Gene and Paul had to buy his record company out in order for them to let him rejoin Kiss, without suing them and having a big hassle. And and then I also remember right before the reunion tour, they also did the convention tour. That kind of even actually predates the Kiss Unplugged. They went on that tour, they recorded Unplugged, but it wouldn't be released like for another year. And I got lucky in Burbank. Actually, they had this Kiss Expo, and it was actually the first one of those official Kiss Expos that the band put on. And at the very first one, I was lucky enough to catch. They had invited Peter Chris down, and
You
he
were
jumped.
there?
Yeah, and he jumped on stage. It was actually Eric Singer who wanted to invite him because he was such a
Yep.
huge Peter fan. And he jumped up on stage, and you can go on YouTube, I'm sure, and find clips of this. I
Oh,
remember
I've
him
seen
doing
them.
like Hard Luck Woman and Nothing to Lose. It was just so cool. And that even predates them getting back together for MTV Unplugged. And it was just so cool because it was so organic that all that stuff followed, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that was the seed planted was when, they were going to be up in LA and he
Yeah,
wanted to go and see the thing and show his daughter what was up,
yeah, yeah.
and show her the convention. And they were like, and like you said, Eric Singer was like, "Hey man, you want to come up and join us?"
Yeah. And you know what's cool too is if you look at Hotter Than Hell, well, really the first three albums, like you said, they didn't sell that well. But what's interesting is those first three albums, I would say Kiss was kind of like a lot of bands in their early days, they're kind of finding their sound. They didn't really know what they were. They're definitely developing their songwriting. Because if you think, if you ever heard any of the Wicked Lester stuff, it's drastically different from Kiss. And they knew right away, hey, this is not the band we want to be. And Kiss was actually, probably by the third album, they're like, okay, this is more in tune with what we always wanted to do.
Well, I think you can see if you take a look at the whole arc of Kiss.
Yeah.
I think you could see a couple different shifts in sound. Um, I think a lot of it, though, in the early days, let's say from the first show to Alive 2, let's
Mm-hmm.
say. I wouldn't even go that far, but maybe Alive 2. Uh, I think if you look at bootlegs of their shows, they sounded very similar throughout that time period, but their records varied.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they were trying to find their sound so much as, in my opinion, it was more instead of finding their sound, it was finding a way to capture their
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
because their sound was based on their live show
Sure.
and it was
Sure.
amazing. But you can't record with bombs going off and
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So, but they never sounded like what they sounded like live. So I think from very early on, once they got made the shift from Wicked Lester and cut all that stuff loose and started concentrating on the hard rock songs and then making them a little shorter, and I think especially once you got those specific four people, because they all came from, well, not all of them came from different backgrounds, but sort of, I
Yeah.
mean, with the drummer coming from more jazz kind of big band era, that lent a different sensibility to the way they did their songs.
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
And even going back to the first album, I definitely say, it's very bombastic. Yeah, it's leaning a little more towards hard rock, but definitely you had some metal elements on there, probably the most being like 100,000 Years, Black Diamond. But, I
well,
think
it's funny you said Wicked Lester because they actually have a Wicked Lester tune on Hotter Than Hell.
Going Blind.
One of those songs, Going Blind, was written by Gene Simmons and Steve Cornell.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear of them writing any songs after Kiss got started. So I'm assuming that was left over from those days.
Oh, sure. And, Steve Cornell, interesting enough, he never went on to any kind of great success. But could you imagine if you were Steve Cornell? I mean, even just having that one songwriting credit on a Kiss album, how cool is that?
True, true. Or like that Penridge guy for Beth, that was in Chelsea with Peter Criss. Uh, but I mean, I'll tell you what, I really dug this album. I played it a lot. Matter of fact, I just came across it the other day. I should have brought it out for this. I have it on vinyl in
I
my
was
house.
listening to this today, and I got to say, two of my favorite tracks. I mean, it's kind of a poppy tune, but I love the Gene track. It's track number 6, All the Way. Just kind of a fun little kind of pop ditty. But I don't even know what it's about, but it's a fun song. I also really
You
love
just keep talking louder.
Louder. Yeah, yeah. And and the other song I really love, which I was interested to find out, Mainline, which Peter Criss sings. Come to find out, that song was actually written by Paul Stanley, and it sounds like you listen to the song, it's almost like Mainline is kind of Paul Stanley talking to a girl. But I heard Peter Criss in an interview a couple times talk over the years about hey man, when I was recording and singing that song, I was talking about my love affair with mainline cocaine. So one guy writes a song about something else, and another guy kind of got his mind somewhere else, which is interesting because, um, you know, Paul Stanley's not a druggie or anything, so I'm pretty sure that was not his reference point. But
Well, you know what?
the
Art
song,
is in the eye of the holder sometimes. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, and it's interesting because But Peter does a great job of performing the song. But it's just kind of funny to think. I'm sure Paul Stanley wasn't thinking of the drug reference, but again, like you said, it shows a guy could write the song about one thing, another guy kind of
when it gets filtered through the person that delivers it.
yeah,
Case in point, Ozzy Osbourne wrote pretty much none of the lyrics for all of his songs. In Black Sabbath, it was Geezer Butler who wrote most of the lyrics. But as Bill Ward, their drummer, was often said, he would digest those lyrics, and the way he would spit them back out, it's singular. You know what I mean? It's the way you deliver it. You know, I mean, same thing with Beth. You know, did he really write that song? But it's the way he sings it. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. I mean,
again, for Peter Criss to make that claim about Beth, I mean, from his perspective, maybe why wouldn't you? Because if you could get away with it, in the sense that he definitely had a role in writing this song, but I think it was more of what Bob Ezrin added to it. Like Paul's talked about over years, you know, Peter, he has all these other songwriters on all his songs that he supposedly can't really write a song. I don't know if that's true or not, but my point being, you know, it is Kiss's biggest hit, and if you're the guy that sings it and you go out there and you get to sing it and people remember you throwing the roses out in the audience, why would you not want to take that credit, you know?
Well, I think it was always pretty open about who co-wrote the song, but they just never chose to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, you could
but then
understand
again,
that.
when you start believing your own press and start going, "Hey, I wrote the hit," careful. You know what I mean? And I won't say who wrote what or how much stuff he really wrote or who but I know people that have been in bands with. How do I say this without compromising myself here? Okay, I know people who have been in bands or songwriting situations, let's say, publishing situations, let's say, with famous people who have a bankable name, let's say, okay, and they don't write songs. So if you're going to write a song with them, though, you writing, let's say you're a songwriter, okay, and you write songs for yourself, and then you write songs for somebody super famous. The songs you write for yourself are going to go where compared to the ones that, you know, so you're going to make so much more of, say, of something attached to a famous name, right? Unless you become famous yourself. But if you're just a songwriter, right? So let's say you write a song for one of the guys in Kiss, you know, if you're going to do it, they're going to go, all right, but my name gets attached and I get half of the songwriting publishing money. You know? But so you got to give up half of something to somebody that didn't create it. However, 50% of a co-write with someone famous is 10 times more than 100% of your own tune. You understand what I'm saying? So people make that deal left and right all the time. All the time. I would do it in a heartbeat and twice on Sunday. You know, let's talk about Taylor Swift, since she's in the news right now. Let's talk about if you were going to co-write a song, or if you wrote a song and you pitched it to Taylor Swift and she loved it and she's going to record it, but she wants publishing. So all you get is 5%. That's it. And she gets 95%. However, 5% of a Taylor Swift song would buy a house.
There you go.
And you'd make that deal every day, wouldn't you?
Sure. And you know,
I'm not saying that applies to Peter Criss or even Paul or Ace or anybody in that band. But I do know people that have been in that situation. And that's how that goes down, and it goes down all the time.
Well, you know, let's talk about Peter Criss all around the subject. I mean, he definitely had the ability to write songs, but I would say over the course of Kiss's career, Gene and Paul were the main songwriters. I mean, definitely he got a song every now and then on the album, and that's cool. You know, you're part of it. It
frustrates me because of his jazz background. So he doesn't write rock songs, and he's not a hard rock songwriter, but he's got one of the best hard rock scream voices of his era. The way he screams on Black Diamond when he sings, but he screams in key. he's not just screaming to shout and be a, you know what I mean? He still has a tone to it. You know what I
I
mean?
dare say,
Like, what's his name? Rod Stewart kind of a vibe. You know what I
yeah.
mean? He's got that rasp, but he's got a lot of power in that voice of his, you know, and so he's like one of those Ozzy Osbournes. Ozzy didn't write most of what he sings, but
It's his
his
band, so
voice
yeah,
is very singular, his delivery and the way he sings it. So
yeah.
when he has good material, Criss just is undeniable. His vocals are just kick ass.
I mean, you look at Nothing to Lose. That's another great one he does. I gotta say, I love the unplugged version with him, Eric, and Gene all trading leads.
Yeah, yeah. When they go back and forth like that,
Yeah.
I love it.
And the two drummers, that was cool. And you know,
Yep.
he really got. I dare say, in my opinion, oftentimes he's a better
I'll tell you what, man. I
singer.
want to take a side note real quick because you're making me think of something. That clip of them in the reunion show with, you know, all four of the originals,
Yeah,
plus Bruce Kulick and Eric Singer, right? And
yeah,
I was just thinking about Eric Singer on that video as a fan.
yeah,
And as a fan, I think that guy gets such a raw deal, man. I'm
sure,
gonna say it. I think he gets such a and as a guy who plays in a Kiss, so obviously I know more about Kiss than the average Kiss
sure,
fan
sure. Yeah,
because you know it's my job to do that, you know. But I think that guy got a raw deal with the fans, man, because
yeah,
a he's such a team player. Clearly, man, it was his idea
yeah,
to invite Criss in the first place, and that's the seed that started all of this rolling.
yeah.
Okay, and it wasn't his choice to wear the cap makeup, but he's a team player
Sure.
again, and he's like, if that's what the band wants me to do, I'll do it. Whatever. I'm a team player. I don't want to quit. I'll do whatever it takes. Let's make this thing work, and whatever you guys want me to do, I'll do.
And
And he
let's be
doesn't
honest,
bitch about it. He doesn't complain. He didn't take shots at the other guys in the interviews like they would with him. You know, like Criss talking about Eric Singer, take off the makeup. Well, dude, you should have kept the makeup rights.
yeah,
Should have, you know, who knows? You know what I mean? We don't know both sides. Who
yeah.
knows?
And let's be
So, I
honest,
mean, I
yeah,
think that guy got a raw deal, but
yeah.
that's just my opinion. But
Let's be
anyways,
honest. If Eric had said no, you know, I'm not going to do that. Maybe just get somebody else. Okay, Eric. Thank you for
yeah.
your services. Um,
And I think he did great. He kept the band going. He was a great drummer. And he didn't, I mean, his first song that he recorded, he didn't even get to do the video for because he wasn't technically in the band at the time. You know, God gave rock and roll to you. Since Eric was still in the band, and I think everybody had maybe a feeling that what if
yeah,
things don't turn out the way they're supposed to, so they let him do the video. You know, obviously he's wearing a wig in it and everything, and we now know that that's the last thing he ever got to do with the band. But so I'm just saying, man, that dude seems like he's a real team player from an outside perspective.
and I think
But that was, you know,
yeah,
and that's the first song that they did with the reunion with all the people coming back was,
God
was
gave
that
rock.
song.
Yeah, God gave, and I think it was a cool
No,
video.
Got to Choose.
Oh, got to choose. Yeah, you're so, you know, another thing we got to talk about before we end up tonight's episode, the title track, Hotter Than Hell. I mean, I've heard Paul, tell me what you think about this. Paul claims that, which I kind of listening to today, I kind of can hear it, that he says, well, he's a big Free fan. He's like, that's based off the riff of All Right Now.
It doesn't surprise me a bit. I've played both of those songs a lot of times in my life, and I can hear it. I can
Yeah.
totally hear it, you know, and I love it. You know, it's got that kind of, you know, Paul Rogers kind of swagger to it. You know, I mean, I can totally see it. I love
What
it.
I
I
love
love
about it
playing
is I
that
can hear
song.
it, but it's not obvious, if you know what I mean. It still comes up with the kind of a Kiss sound, but if you listen, if you know that that's what it's based on, you listen.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, it's definitely Kiss. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
They make it their own.
yeah,
So they're able to take the influence and filter it through them without being, you know, without like stealing, you know what I mean? Without it being really bad, you know
yeah.
what I mean? And I'll tell you about that song Hotter Than Hell. The version of it that appears on Kiss Alive.
Yeah.
I was so at one time addicted to that song, more specifically, the very first two notes of the
Uh-huh.
song, which is you hear a slight little 4 count on the sticks where it goes 1, 2, 3. There's a 3 count on the sticks, 1 hit on the snare, and then there's 2 notes that start it. It goes, da
Yeah.
you know, and then the song starts, right? But so that first little I was like Rain Man about that
Wow.
specific part. So what I would do is I had a cassette player.
Yeah.
Cassette player. This is how old it was.
Yeah.
Okay. My folks used to manage and live at a self-storage facility. We had an apartment on site
Oh,
and we
wow.
would manage the place, which was cool because when they would go to Las Vegas for the weekend, I would have a parties over there with my friends and
Yeah.
we would drive the U-Hauls up and down the aisles of the storage. And you remember Teen Wolf with Michael J. Fox. He did that surfs up move. You know what I mean? We would do that all. Wow, it was crazy fun. But I would sit on the back building, and in back of the back building was a railroad track.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
and I used to sit with my cassette player of Kiss Alive,
Yeah.
and it would have when it would get around to that point in the tape, right?
Uh,
And what I would do is I would sit up there with a BB gun and I would shoot lizards off the railroad tracks. You know, when I would see a lizard, I would
yeah.
pop it with my BB gun, you know.
Wow. Wow.
I'm surprised it never hit ricocheted and hit me in the face or something. But so I would sit up on top of the building with my cassette player. And when it got around to Hotter Than Hell, I would let it start. You would hear tick, 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 black, damn it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Rewind.
Wow.
Start. Tick, 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 tack. Bennett. Stop. Rewind.
Yeah.
Play. Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
Bennett. Over and over again, like a freak, like 2 dozen times in a row before I would play the rest of the song.
Wow. Wow. That's so cool. And
I love playing that song. It's awesome. We play a lot of songs off this album in our set. A lot of our material comes from the first live album and the second. So all those original batch of albums. So of this album, we play Parasite, Hotter Than Hell, Let Me Go, Rock and Roll. We've done that, of course. I'd love to do Going Blind. It's a creepy song. You know, it's not like a family-friendly song.
Yeah.
I think in a way, Going Blind and
Watching You.
Christine 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think those two songs are songs that are great. They're awesome songs, but lyrically filtering through, you know, if you filter through the lens of the time that it came out in, it was what it was, and it's hardly the biggest thing causing a stir back then. But if you look back through our current lens, it's a 93-year-old man singing a love song to a 16-year-old girl.
And again, I think at the time it was written as just a different day and time. I mean,
they were looking at it as science fiction or something, maybe.
Yeah, I don't really think he was wanting to have sex with little girls. But let's be honest, Christine 16, it's a little more in your face. Says it in
when I saw you, I had to have you.
Christine 6, but I think Going Blind gets away with it a little more because
I just love the riff. I love
the tune is not as poppy. It's a little slower of a song, so unless you're really listening to the lyrics, you might not catch it.
Yeah, no, I just love it. I'll tell you what, though, Let Me Go, Rock and Roll. I love it. Watching You is awesome. We're going to be doing that soon.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Strange Ways, I've seen that played live, with Peter's band. Yeah, I can take it or leave it. Mainline, that's kind of got that 60s.
You don't think though for Strange Ways for a drummer, you don't think that's a cool song? I mean, I've heard Peter Criss talk over years that supposedly when they were recording the album, he told Gene Paul, if I don't get to sing that song, I'm going to quit the band. And they were like, okay, go ahead. But he got to sing
Well, I do like the riff on it. I think, obviously, I mean, anything Ace writes, I'm down with. So, and that was one of his for sure. So I dug it, It would have been very interesting to hear him sing that song back then.
Yeah. And let me ask you, let's talk about the costumes, the makeup. The makeup is quite different from, what it would eventually become. This is very early makeup. The costumes are quite different, but I think it's a cool look,
I want to point out something. Hold it up. Hold Ace's face in that up to your camera. All right. You notice how you can only see half of Ace's face in those photos, right?
Yeah, I know where you're going with that.
Especially on the ones on the back cover.
Sure.
Because just before the photo shoot for this, he had a car accident and his face was screwed up. So maybe not on the front cover, but if you look in the cover, in the photos in the back, you'll see that there's a couple of photos where
Oh,
You
this
can
really
only
showed
see-
up too good. It's kind of tiny, but yeah.
Yeah, because he had some wrong with his face, and so only half of it was made up.
What
And
I
then
read,
I guess
like he
Paul
was,
was super drunk.
yeah, what I read before is I think it happened the day before they were supposed to go do the photo shoot. So when he showed up for the photo shoot, he was only made up on one side of his face because the left side I think it was filled with stitches.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so,
So,
that album cover, they just do some magic photography.
we'll let it in.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. And then Paul, I guess, was just wasted. So when you see him all laid out, I guess it's not much of a acting job in the photos.
And
Sounds like it was
supposedly,
a fun photo shoot.
I was gonna say, I heard for years the photo shoot was just kind of crazy, and they took all kind. Now, I think that would be a cool book to like. Let's finally release the Hotter Than Hell photo session. You know, put a book or something out. That would be cool.
I think there are a lot of photos from that photo session out. If you Google it, you'll see. I think there's almost all of the ones from that shoot.
Sure.
And it's
then,
crazy.
The final thing I'd like to make note of is you see the little kind of Japanese sign. That's called a chikara, and supposedly chikara, and that means like power. And Kiss Eric Carr, like on the Crazy Nights tour, he had that symbol on his drum set. Oh wow, yeah, there you go. yeah.
My wife has it on her ankle. When we got married, I made her put it on my ankle. Now my son has it on his arm. Okay. And when I got endorsed, or when I got my endorsement deal with Soul Tone Symbols, who are awesome, and go to soultonesymbols.com, everybody, and check out their symbols. But my name and logo, I've got my own little signature line of symbols, and that the Shikara is there too. I've kind of taken it on as my own personal emblem.
Sure, that's cool.
And it's my family brand now. I branded my wife with it, and I branded my son with it. So that way they can't never get away from me. I'll always find you.
You made it your own. So, Jason, before we wrap it up, next time we get together and we do one of these episodes, I'm going to give you a choice. Are you at all a Skid Row or a Bon Jovi fan? The reason I ask is I was thinking we could either do the next episode on the 35th anniversary of the debut Skid Row, or the 40th anniversary of the debut Bon Jovi album. Are you a fan of any of that?
I like both of them. So maybe we should do a two-part.
Yeah.
And we'll cap it off with a little word that I just heard recently. We'll have to look into it.
Okay.
And we're going to report back during our Skid Row segment. Okay. Here's what you got to I heard from a little birdie that they're about to do, speaking of Kiss, who has done this move in Japan. Kiss recorded a whole album of their biggest hits with Eric and Tommy, so they can use it for licensing, and they don't have to renegotiate with the other guys.
I heard the
less
same
to worry
thing.
about. Right?
I heard the same thing.
I heard a rumor that Skid Row is prepping the same thing.
Yeah, that's going around on the internet, so I heard the same thing. Well, Jason,
we'll have to look into that. We'll have to report back.
Well, Jason Lee, I'll check back with you in about 2 weeks, see if we can do the next episode. It's been great fun doing this, the first new show of 2024. We'll be posting this up. I'm going to try to get up on by Friday or Monday of next week, so I'll keep you posted on that, my friend. Take care and have a great rest of your night, okay?
Take care. Rock and roll, everybody.
Take care, bud. Bye-bye.